What's up YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Homebrew Subaru. In this episode I'm going to replace the wiper motor on this 2017 Toyota Corolla. So what's up everyone? Yes, I have a Toyota Corolla back in my garage. This is my neighbor's vehicle, he uses it for work, and he's kind of run into the situation where he's lost some speeds on his wiper motor. I have not diagnosed this job, so as far as he knows, the wiper motor is no good. Apparently a friend of his ran into the same situation, and they replaced the wiper motor. It got all the speeds back. So right now, as far as I know, I haven't actually tested it. It's only working on high, and it's a little bit slow working in high. So that's the reason he mainly believes it needs to be replaced. I'm not going to go about checking anything. I am just going to go straight for the replacement because this was ordered online. We waited 2 weeks for it, and it rains a lot here. So I'm going to jam it in there, and if it doesn't work, then I'll go a little further. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into this because it's kind of cold out here. I have my propane heat on high, and this engine was warmed up, and it's still, relatively cool out here. The first thing we need to do to start is get the wiper arms off, and there's a little cover that holds the nut that holds the wiper arm off, so we got to get the cover off. Just a pick up in the kind of the front of it, and they just pop right off easily. The only thing that retains them on is just the little kind of holder, goes right onto that nut. First thing we need to do is get these 14mm nuts off. I like to impact them off. You can hold the wiper and crack them with the socket and ratchet, but just a quick snap with the gun and they pop right off. So the wiper arms actually rest on the pivot. It's kind of a tapered spline, and as the wiper arm tightens down onto it, it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. The arms can actually be damaged because they're usually made of soft aluminum, and the spline can actually damage them if you are too rough taking them off. You're going to grab the wiper arm and kind of pull up on it and jar down. And that should loosen it enough that you can just kind of lift it up off of there. And this one came off super easy. I don't think you would need a puller. Yeah, these guys come off very easy, real nice. Make sure you keep your arms side for side. Next will be the wiper cowling. So you kind of want to go ahead and search for all the clips to see what might be holding this thing on. I think this is all one piece, and I remember I routed his antenna wire along the cowling here, so I'll have to snip all those zip ties unless I can get this to kind of roll ahead. But little push pin clips in here. You can pull up these little corners. Might free it up to help it get it out. There'll be one on each side. Okay, from what I can see, it's just these clips on the underside that you gotta kind of just pop out. And they look like they go right across. And this is like a lid so you can get at the brake fluid. Okay, I think I got the whole front undone. And then just just a kind of a little pull forward to get it away from the windshield. Now this guy should just pretty much lift up right out of there. Now that the wiper cowling is out of the way, you can see the actual wiper transmission. The motor is bolted on the underside of it, so the transmission is going to have to come out in order to change the motor off of it. So we want to take note of a couple things here, because I believe the fresh motor that we have indicates no master spline to the actual arm. So kind of marking the arm's position on the transmission right now can save you a problem later, because you don't want to have this thing improperly timed and you'll be trying to figure out why the wipers aren't working properly. And you can't set the arms up properly, and it's all because of this. So I'm going to take the time and just mark with a marker where the arm's position is. And even if it really doesn't matter because you can tell where it is, it doesn't hurt to just mark it anyway. So next we can go about getting this thing out of here. The wiring actually has one of these indestructible and non-disconnectable kind of zip ties holding it. So I think what I'm going to do is just leave it attached to the transmission and take it off with it. Kind of lay the whole thing over here, and we can work with it right here. 10 mil. Is there just the two mounts? Yeah, just two mounts, and I think there's a grommet at the back that just kind of supports it. It just kind of slides out to the passenger side. Now I can kind of rest this here for a second. Just be careful where your positive battery terminal is. But actually I'm going to leave it like that because we're going to work with it on this side, I suppose. You can disconnect the electrical connector. And then I would say that's probably a 12 mil. Yes, it is 12 mil. Same thing. If you're trying to do this by hand, you're going to have to hold this, kind of clamp it up with a vise or do something with it, but this guy should just kind of wiggle off. Might have to pry it. Just a couple wiggles and it came off. Has the same type of taper on the motor as it does on the pivots for the actual wiper. Just rest that to the side. And then kind of while supporting the whole thing, 3 more 10 mil bolts. And the motor will just drop off the back side of the transmission. So now we need to compare it to the new motor and make sure we got the right one. So I have the replacement wiper motor in my left hand, the original in my right, and I don't know how well you can see, but the aftermarket has a much larger motor on it. The case has been designed a little differently to house the bigger motor. It also has a little vent on it, and obviously the gearing inside here is done a little differently. Whether they're using the same electronics or not, I'm not quite sure. That does look very similar, but the clips are even different to attach to this housing differently. So this is a Cardone unit. Would be very popular out in the replacement market, so I'm sure it's going to do the job. Just need to remount it without moving the transmission all over the place. Just put it back in the position that it was. And these are just small 10 mil bolts. You don't need to have them crazy tight, just good and hand tight is good enough. And now just take the arm and drape it right back over top, trying to maintain the position that you had before. Looks pretty good there. And then try and locate the nut wherever you put that. And then again, while having a good hold of it, maintaining the position, go ahead and tighten the nut up. And now you can just take the connector and plug it into the new motor. Make sure the connector's on all the way. And then just take the transmission and guide it back down in here without cracking the windshield. You line up that grommet at the back and slide it to the driver's side. Your two 10 mil bolts. So now that we've gotten to this point, could have actually made sure that the motor was in its parked position to start with, but I think this will be fine trying it like this. We'll kind of want to turn the wipers on low, check the operation, and make sure that when it goes to park, this arm is in the same position that it is now. So everything looks right. It's parking at the same position. When I feel the arm, I can feel it move to the right and then left, looking at it in this direction, which is proper. So we're ready to go ahead and put everything back together. It just sucks when you get everything back together and then you go to operate it and it doesn't do what you want, so it's best to just check it now. And it also looks like the wiper motor was the cause of the low speed issues, because all speeds seem to work properly now. So it's just as easy as putting back the cowling, getting the wiper arms bolted back on, and we're pretty much finished. Now the cowling has these little felt pads going along it, and basically the windshield is going to go in between those felt pads and the lip of the cowling. Kind of resting the lip onto the windshield. Should get it mostly lined up, and then just giving it a little shove will get it into place. And then trying to line up the clips, just pushing them down should pop them into place. Forgot about this little wire harness here, I want to put that back in. We got these little corner pieces to put back on. And we can go ahead and put the wiper arms back on. Just kind of placing them back down onto that taper, giving a little push. Making sure your wiper blade kind of lines up to where it was. If you don't have any kind of imprint left on the windshield, you can always use a little bit of masking tape to show you exactly where your wiper blade was. And maybe I should have advised that before this point. And then tightening these, I'll just kind of give them a little, just enough to seat them down, and maybe a tiny little past it. And let me stress, that does take experience. You can't just take an impact gun. That's only a little 3/8 gun, but you can't just be zapping stuff like that if you're not sure. because you'll break that right off and then you need a wiper transmission. And yes, I've seen that happen before. The little caps push down into place. So now I just want to make sure that they're operating fine, so I'll use the washer and get some fluid up onto the windshield, give them a couple wipes, make sure everything looks good, and then we're finished. It's that easy to replace one of these guys. Most Japanese cars would be very similar. Some have a much larger transmission to deal with, and some of the wiper arms come off a little differently, but for the most part, it's as simple as that. So yeah, that's how quick and easy it can be to do one of your wiper motors. Not even that many tools. It can basically be done in your driveway in little time. It could be done at the parts store in their parking lot. If you had like 10 mil, 12, 14, you could probably manage. Those motors, I expect, because this is, you know, it's a 4-year-old car, and we do get a lot of rain here, those motors are likely to be failing in the future. The replacement is already a beefier unit, so it obviously indicates that Toyota's run into some type of issue with it. So yeah, getting into the aftermarket stuff seems to work fine. It worked on all speeds, so even his diagnosis of the motor being bad and the speed control being within the motor, he was definitely right about that. So yeah, I know it wasn't a Subaru, but these little videos definitely bring a lot of views and a lot of attention to the channel, and I'm kind of glad that I can do the favor for him, make a little side money, and get a good video up for you guys to watch, and help me out some more. So yeah, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here and you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I will see you in the next one.